Hey Audio Engineering, this is Mr. Goldschmidt, and today I'm going to talk about our assignment called Rhythmic Dictation. We're going to be creating a rhythmic dictation in Mixcraft. That means we're going to be recording in drum sounds that I have already pre-recorded, and you're going to make your own version of them just by being able to listen. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we need to do is open up Mixcraft. We're going to create a virtual instrument track. In this case, we're going to have 4 different ones, and we're going to load in standard kit 1. Then we're going to change our tempo to 100 beats per minute. We'll turn on that metronome, and we want to make sure we record with that metronome in tempo in order for us to be able to quantize correctly. Then we're going to listen to the first rhythm, and after listening, we're going to practice to figure out how to play it. Then we'll record and quantize that recording to fix it, and when we're all finished, we're going to line them up and then turn it in on Classroom. So let's get started. First, I've already opened up Mixcraft. It's ready to go. I have my 4 virtual instrument tracks, but you'll notice they're piano. At this moment, I also have a MIDI keyboard plugged in, so we're going to make sure and double check that our MIDI keyboard's working properly. We'll go up to our settings and go down to the MIDI and make sure that our launch, well, in this case, I have several different things plugged in, but my MPK MIDI controller is plugged in, and so we are good to go in that point. Now I can test it by clicking on that first track and then playing my piano keys, and it is hooked up correctly. Next, I'm going to go into my MIDI devices, and I'm going to change this. I'm going to go find percussion drum kits, and then we're just going to use standard kit 1 today for these sounds. So I've got standard kit 1. If you're at home and you don't have a MIDI keyboard, you can use the musical typing function by using your actual computer keyboard and the corresponding keys. Now, what you'll want to do for that is you'll need to go down 1 octave. So you'll need to hit that C2. That will put A as your kick on the keyboard, and S will be your snare drum. T will be your hi-hat, and those are the ones that you'll need to be using. But today I'm going to be using my MIDI controller. So I'm going to close out on that, exit off here, and I'm ready to go. Now, I only have standard kit 1 for this first track. I could go in and change all those other ones, but what I like to do instead is I'll just duplicate those tracks, and it's a lot easier than having to dig through those menus. So now I have 4 kits here. They are all standard kit 1. You could record our upcoming drum tracks all on 1 track, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and label this first one kick for my kick drum. I'm going to label the second one snare. I'm going to label this third one hat because it's going to be my hi-hat. Now some of the other ones will use an open hi-hat, but right now I just need those 3 tracks because that's all I'm going to be recording in. My next goal is I'm going to go ahead back to our Google site, and I'm going to listen to Rhythm 1. And Rhythm 1 sounds like this. You may not be able to hear this easily, but I'll hit play. It's got a metronome that starts out, then it starts the beat. So next I'll want to go back into Mixcraft. I need to change my tempo to 100 BPM. I'm going to make sure my metronome is on. It's recording. Let me turn up the volume so I can hear it, but I think it should be good now. And I have right now 1 counting measure. The recording that I made before, the demo one, has 2 counting measures, so you could change that to 2 if you want. Go ahead and leave it at 1. The first thing I'm going to record right now is my kick. So I need to find my kick on my keyboard, and it's ready to go right here. And I am ready to record. So I'm going to hit arm on that track because I want to record the kick track and record. I've got that done. I can hit play back on that. Now you'll notice I had an empty measure here at the beginning, but before I fix that, I'm going to go ahead and go down to MIDI editing, and I'm going to quantize this. I'm going to quantize to 1/8 notes because I didn't play any rhythm faster than an 1/8 note, and hit OK, and it's going to fix all of my rhythms. Then I can go in, and I can split this track right where my cursor was and get rid of that first measure, drag my stuff over. Everything's perfect. Now I'm going to go ahead and record my snare track. I'm going to arm my snare track, find my snare drum, and record. After I've got that done, I'm going to double click on my snare track. I can see it's down here. It's got a snare drum. Now I accidentally recorded something a little extra on there, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I will go into my quantize the eighth notes. Everything is good. Now I'm going to delete just this extra little bit that I added on there by splitting and then deleting. So here's what I have so far. Alright, now the last part I need to add is my hi-hat. So I found my hi-hat key. I'm going to record. Oop, I made a mistake there, and that's a good mistake to make. So what I forgot to do there was unarm my snare track. And what it did was it created a lane. And so you can record multiple lanes inside one track. I don't want to do that right now, so I'm going to go down to lanes and delete empty lanes. Make sure I go down to the hat now. Recording, counting, measure. I'm going to turn that on because it wasn't on before. And then record. And I've recorded right with that metronome. Just to double check though, I'm going to go into my MIDI editing. I'm going to quantize the eighth notes because that's the fastest rhythm I played. Then I can go back and listen to it all. Alright, my first rhythm is done. Now you may notice on your recording sometimes that the volume isn't always consistent. So what we can do is if we go down into our track, at the bottom you have this thing called velocity. Velocity is determined by how hard you push down and fast you push down those keys. If you don't push them down consistently, then you get some notes that are softer and some that are louder. So what I can do is I can click and drag across and boost everything up, or I can click and drag across and boost everything down to a lower volume. But what I want to do is I'm going to put it as a line so that they all go all the way up to that maximum, all the way up to the maximum volume. And I can do that on my snare as well. Sometimes they get a little lower. And then I'll do that for my hat. And my hat should be pretty consistent because I hit it pretty good throughout. And draw those across. So now I have a consistent sound all the way through. The reason I like to record in separate tracks is now I can go in and add individual effects on those tracks if I wanted to change them. Next thing I would do is I'd move over to I'd skip a measure, move on over, and go in and listen to the second rhythm dictation and begin that one. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Always quantize, record with that metronome, and your music will be perfect.